And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the ToolBelt, episode 248. Today, we have another special guest. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition. Stay tuned, and we will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. TC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
Kansas City, here I come. Going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come.
Awesome. That kind of gave me goosebumps. Great intro.
Me too, but for a different reason. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We have an awesome guest, Becca Switzer, well known around our industry, man. Thank you so much for carving out some time because I know you are a busy woman in our space today. So how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed that time we chatted at a roofing process conference briefly. There was a lot of chaos, but I was like, I really enjoyed that conversation. So I am excited to have another one with you. I do just want to put this out there, though. It's Switzer.
Switzer.
Yeah, Switzer like Switzerland, but that's okay. You're not the first and you won't be the last.
I will never forget that again. Thank you for correcting me because a lot of people would. I always screw. I am known for screwing everybody's name up and like don't find out for like 6 months later. Somebody's like, hey, you've been pronouncing their name wrong.
Yeah, it's like when people, so I used to have a dog named Raleigh. He was my best boy. I had to put him down earlier this year. He was almost 14, but people had a very hard time with his name for some reason. I was like, Raleigh, like the Carolinas, They're like Rayleigh or Rolly. And I'm like, Raleigh, like Jolly Raleigh. I'm always Switzer, like Switzerland.
Yeah, there you go, Switzer. No, perfect. That's good because that's a great connection there that will help me remember how to pronounce your last name. I still can't for the life of me pronounce Eric O's last name.
Oberman.
So,
Obermt.
oh,
Obermt.
dude, I've tried a million times, and I still, yeah, can't. So he's accepted it, and so have I.
Yeah.
So his name is Eric O,
Yeah.
and I think mostly everybody knows him as Eric O. So
I mean, who has the time for all those syllables anyways? So
seriously, and I'm half deliterate to begin with, so I mean I can barely speak the English language as it is, even though I am, I guess, English or
like
whatever.
as Nelly says in his song, Country Grammar, I speak English, but baby, I can't talk it.
Yes, exactly. That's me. That's a perfect example. Now, I have tried to polish things up over the years, but I've given up, and I am who I am. And sorry, this is what you get.
We accept you the way you are.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you so much. Well, cool, man. That's good. How's the weather? I know we talked briefly about the weather in Colorado, but give us a rundown. You're at 9,000 feet. Like, do you need oxygen at any given time, or have you pretty much acclimated yourself to the elevation?
I'm very, very active. I'll show you what we've got. The beautiful aspens popping off right now. The weather is absolutely gorgeous. Yes, I am at 9,000 feet, but I hike 3 to 5 miles every single day with my dogs up here, and like I lift weights. I add elevation actually because I lift weights up there in that room.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, when people come and visit me, they're like, "Oh my God, don't you notice the elevation?" But I actually only notice it when I go away from it, and I'm like when I'm at sea level, I'm like, I can run for 2 miles straight and like not stop. That's amazing. But yeah, it's beautiful right now.
Yeah, and that has to be conducive for you under, considering or like if I'm working out here and I went there to work out, I'm sure your endurance is probably a lot more better than mine, wouldn't it be? Or no?
Probably. Maybe, but I don't do like a ton of high cardio. Like I run a little bit when the mood strikes, and that's really
Okay.
hard for me. But I can power through a long hike like a mule.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's stamina, and that's I guess that's what I was insinuating was your stamina. I guess when it comes to working out and things like that, I'm sure is a lot more than mine would be. You'd probably outpace me if we went on a hike because of me not being able to acclimate my lungs, I guess, to that elevation. I don't know. I've been to Colorado maybe twice. And I think the last time I went, I was with Jana, and I think she was actually having issues like where her face was like swelling, like her phalanges and her toes and shit were like swelling from the elevation. Maybe. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I am famous for speed walking anyway. And because I gain about 500 feet of elevation on my hikes every day, at least 500, 600, something like that. So and I don't slow down. I'm just like, so when people come with me, they're like, but
No doubt. I can
bring dogs.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Good for you, man. Because that's what it's about, right? Like your mental health, your physical health, that all plays a role in, everything that we do. I mean, I think, for as far as like business goes, if I'm not doing personal development and working on myself, whether it's reading, educating myself, working out, being active, stretching my mind and my body, like my business, there's no growth in my business either.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a huge correlation between the two. Like once the growth stops with me, our business and my professional life stops to grow as well.
Exactly. And I think it's also just about, there's two things that come to mind with that. I noticed early on, like earlier in my 20s, that if I could conquer my physical body, I could do anything. Because like the hardest thing for most people is like getting your ass up and exerting yourself in some way, whether that's, running or lifting weights in the gym or whatever. And if you can get over the mental hump to do that every day, it's all about small daily habits, right? So, when I look at my business, it's funny. I actually made a video about this not too long ago, but I was like, it's not these like, you don't have to run a Spartan obstacle course race every single day and max yourself out to be in shape and have a healthy lifestyle. It's like, go for a 30-minute walk, lift for 30 minutes, do 20 minutes of yoga, And so even with my business, it's like, I don't kill myself working. I have a couple of hours, a few days a week, but I'm constantly, I pack a lot of productivity into there where it's very focused, it's intentional, and it's consistent. And just like exercise, that's what most people are lacking, I think, is consistency of taking action. And that's a theme that will overlay any area of your life.
Yeah, no, great point. Great point. And putting yourself in shitty positions, I guess, some people might think exercising and working out's kind of like, oh God, this is like so much like work, right? But
Yeah.
if you can kind of grind through that and feel that burn and get that swole and stuff like that, and if you continuously put yourself in those positions, I feel like it's preparing yourself for like actual shitty things that might happen in your life. So it's easier to overcome that adversity if you're continuously putting yourself in positions to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And it's funny because I got a funny story about the first time that I went scuba diving with my friend Eric O.
Yeah.
Most recently, we were in Cayman a couple months ago, wasn't that long ago. And so I had to go through all this training and certifications and testing and stuff like that. And it sucked, man. I mean, it sucked to the point where it's like, this is really stupid. Like, why am I intentionally drowning myself? And that's how I felt in these pools, right? So I'm in the great state of Pennsylvania. There's actual scuba diving lessons here in PA.
Yeah.
So I went to a pool. It was a climate controlled atmosphere. Like everything was, controlled environment and all this stuff like that. But they had us doing really crazy stuff underwater, like pulling my mask out, turning my tank off, like all this horrible shit. And like, I would panic. Like I took water in a couple times and I dove to the top and the lady's like, you can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you can't do that? Like I swallowed freaking water.
Yeah.
And she explained to me, like, you can actually like spit, puke, throw up, whatever you need to do in that respirator or whatever it's called. I can't even remember the name of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, if you get water in your mouth, like you can actually spit through the thing. So I was like, all right, cool. So that was like the first day. And then the second day they had us doing some other crazy stuff. Like, man, this is so dumb. So I call Eric up. I get home from this training, this lesson underwater thing. I'm like, dude, I can't come. And I'm giving him every excuse in the world. And I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, what kind of person or human being, father figure, influence, leader would I be if I backed out of this? Like, if I can't overcome this, then dude, like that just knocked me down a peg or two of the person that I actually thought I was. And it probably has knocked me down a peg or two within other people's eyes of what they thought that I could do or overcome and things like that. So I called him back and I'm like, dude, I'm going to do it. And he's like, I was waiting for that call because he's like, I know who you are. Like, I know what you're made of. And I got real with him. I'm like, listen, dude, it sucked. Like, I didn't like it. I felt like I was drowning. But then I also explained to him too. And this was what was the other cool metaphor about this is I drowned as a child. And obviously I made it, but I've carried that with me. I love the water. I love being around the water. I love being on the water. Okay. Around it, on it, but like in it, you know what I mean? I'll snorkel and do crazy shit like that, but not this crazy. Long story short, I explained this to him and he's like, dude, well, you need to overcome all this right now. So it was like, okay, bet, I'm doing it. So I went up, I got certified. We went out. And of course we went under. Listen, my first time I had to get my open water certification and we were able to do that in Cayman. They had us 130 freaking feet underwater. Like, I don't even think they're supposed to do that on the first dive.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But we're with Eric O and his people and stuff like that. But it was cool. That might not have been the first dive, but it was amongst one of the first dives. But the things, okay, so I overcame that. And now I feel like there's nothing I can't do. Like, there's nothing I can't do. I overcame a couple fears here. One, the fear of drowning, the fear of like, this is really dumb. Like, why would anybody want to do this? And singled myself out. But I went down there and I saw a turtle. Turtle got in my face. This thing had to be 300 years old. It had barnacles growing on it and shit, and got in my face and it let me pet it. And at that moment, it's giving me goosebumps right now. At that moment, I swear to you, I thought I'm supposed to be here right now.
Yes, absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. So it was cool. So anyhow, you need to be intentional about putting yourself in shitty situations. I think sometimes like push yourself outside your comfort zone, because when the outside environment brings something, because the world, the universe sometimes throws you a curveball, right? So if we're not preparing ourselves for those battles, like, how are we supposed to deal with these things? Are we going to tuck our tail and run, or are we going to prepare ourselves for battle?
Yeah. I always used to remember thinking the thought, do shit that sucks. Like, just do shit that sucks, because that's how you get stronger and braver, and you just kind of build that muscle for adversity. And it's funny because you and I were talking before the show started about tattoos and how we secretly like have this weird, like, we like the pain because it's like, I always notice, I'm like, this is a great opportunity for me to witness pain happening to me without identifying it and like giving up. It's like, okay, so what I'm thinking of right now, and as you described that story with scuba diving, like overcoming that fear, is it's about witnessing fear or pain or whatever it is without identifying with it so much that it ruins you, right? It's like you are a being that's having an experience. And so right now I'm having a temporary experience of fear or a mental roadblock, or I'm experiencing pain or struggle or grief or depression or loneliness or anger or whatever it is, right? But you just understand that it's like weather. Sometimes it's raining. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's storming, right? So it's about just endurance, witnessing the experience without identifying with it so much that it sinks you, and realizing that it's temporary. Right. And what's on the other side of that thing? Like, I'm keeping myself from a beautiful experience shared with my friends. If I can't scuba dive, I'm showing my kids that something else has power over me, like my fear has power over it. So there's so many different ways to approach it, but
Yeah,
I love
there
that.
really is. Yeah, thank you so much, because it's been very impactful in my life. One, the fellowship and the camaraderie that I got to experience on this trip. Like Tim Brown was there, Erico, Joe Huffman. Like there was a lot of really good people there,
Yeah.
and to be able to open up like that, like, look, guys, I'm scared. And Tim Brown was my scuba partner, because that is something you can't go scuba diving by yourself. You always need a partner. This is one of those team things, right? Like, so there were so many different lessons and metaphors amongst this trip. Like it was so life-changing for me to experience this with somebody else that never did it either, but we kind of helped push each other through it. Because I saw Tim kind of panic sometimes, and then I panic sometimes when we were underneath there, but it was kind of like, because you got to do hand signals.
Yeah. Okay, I need to go up. I'm okay.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? So, or like, no bueno, dude, like, I'm out. You know what I mean? But it was like,
Yeah.
and it goes against everything that we're trained to do. Like, you're under a stressful situation, into the nose, out to the mouth. Well, you can't do that underwater. It's straight through your mouth the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not used to that either. So, but you got to remember to breathe. So the name of this trip's called Exhale, which, again, another metaphor. Like, we went there, unwind, experience some crazy shit, but come back better people, so it was good to experience that with people. And I liked how you were talking about the seasons, as seasons change. Like, you were talking about some days it's raining, sometimes it's sunny out. So to learn how to adapt to those situations, right? Like, sometimes I got to put a jacket on. Sometimes I got to put a coat on. Sometimes I get to wear my bikini. You know what I mean? But it's like, I just got to roll with those punches. And that's what it made me think of. Like, when you were talking about, I just heard a really great podcast about, as things change, like, and I just need to know how to adapt and be decisive, especially when other people are like relying on me. Like, I need to be the guy that, like, I might not have all the answers all the time, but I can't panic and I can't freak. We just got to get through this. Sometimes I got to put my coat on. Sometimes I can wear my bikini.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just like witnessing the experience without getting flooded by it, And there's a quote, no winter lasts forever, no spring skips its turn. And so it's like also realizing in those moments, like, this is a temporary experience. Sometimes temporary experiences are a year long. Like, if you're grieving the loss of somebody or something like that, or it's a breakup or a death or an illness or whatever. But I think just keeping your head above water and staying calm. I mean, these are just such great analogies and metaphors for those experiences.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's the thing too, is not to panic or flail. You're right. Because I've done that, especially in my younger years, where I would panic, and I'm very intentional about not doing that anymore. Like, I know, because I've come to realize that things don't happen to us, they happen for us.
Yeah.
And I know you're of that same mindset, because I think we touched on that before. And it's kind of like, that's like, there's a couple of things. Like, if we're living, breathing today, things happen all the time. I don't care if it's somebody that pulled out in front of me, a roof leaks, or whatever. There's always things that are coming at us. And it's like, a lot of time, this is how like systems, processes, KPIs, new job positions, because of these things that are happening for us, that's how these things get created, right? Because I don't have the answers for everything. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I can't predict the future and I don't have a crystal ball. So it's like we need bad shit to happen to us for like great things to happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I look at it too. Like when like the worst of all worst things, you know, and that's of course that's how I always think, like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Right. Well, this is how good shit gets built. This is how things get formed. You know what I mean? If you can look at it like, okay, why is this happening for us right now? Okay, well, there was a gap that needs to be filled. So that either we need to fill it with a process or we need to fill it with a person. Is this a temporary thing? Is it just like a 6-month project? You know what I mean? So do we need to hire an outside company to come in and just like build something for 6 months? Or is this a position that actually needs to be filled for a lifetime? And that's how I try to look at things today. I'm not perfect at it, but about 5 minutes into it, sometimes I'm like, okay, why is this happening for us?
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of the saying that necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And I had actually journaled not too long ago, maybe this was last year, but I'd written something about like how everything stems from problems. Like we don't come up with improvements or changes or redirection without hitting problems, right? Like we need to improve something or change something in our life. And so they're all just stepping stones to discovering new paths or better options in our lives or for our businesses or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
people, again, I think we get too attached to the thing itself. We either get attached to the fear, like we talked about, or we get attached to the problem instead of seeing it as like, oh, this is just like a problem. For example, is just like a messenger. Hey, this thing doesn't work this way very well. This
Mhm.
relationship doesn't serve you very well. This is not good for your health, right? And so they're just kind of signposts to be like, something's not working, and then we take it as information and then we get to choose what to do with that information. And it reminds me of the concept of like there's power in the pause, right? So many people are so reactive to everything. If you think you're drowning, you're going to react like you're drowning. If you think you're drowning and then you give yourself just a second to pause and be like, I think that I'm drowning right now. I'm not actually drowning. How do I want to respond to this? And it's hard to do, right? Because we're animals, right? And it's like we are reactive to things and it's easy to not just take a tiny moment or step back and just we think we have to solve the problem exactly right now or it's life or death, and that really puts us in a powerless position, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so reactive to things too. You know what I mean? And I think that's helped me be a little more proactive, so I don't have to. I guess there's a difference between like responding and reacting. How am I going to respond to this? Like, give myself that 2.3 seconds to realize, okay, I'm not going to drown if I exhale.
Yeah.
Right? And then inhale through my mouth, not through your nose, dumb dumb. Right? And these are the conversations I actually have with myself, and I have to have these conversations because if I don't learn how to, and breathing has a lot to do with it. Like I need to like take a breath, step back, give myself a minute, to kind of analyze things because I'm kind of analytic. I like to tear things apart and put it back together and figure out how it works.
Yeah.
And sometimes in certain instances, especially if I feel like I'm drowning, like I don't have time to like think about how the lungs are working right now and how they're compressing and decompressing and all this water's coming into my mouth, right? You know what I mean? Like I can't go through those motions, right? When I'm underwater, I just got to remember, keep it simple, stupid, just exhale,
Yeah.
regardless if you have a mouthful of water or not. But you touched on something that's so good about like change. Like people don't like change, right? Whether it's a breakup, a lot of people, especially in like the workplace or a relationship, I think it becomes so much easier to just stay in that environment because it's predictable, right?
Yes.
And then you try to throw a curveball at them and change some things around. It's like all of a sudden it was like, oh, I don't like change. But what I think people are experiencing is like when you change things like that, they're not really afraid of the fear of the change. I think it's more so the fear of the grieving that they don't even know that they're going to go through or they don't even know they're experiencing the grieving of the loss, even though it's going to be something good. The change is good. They
Yeah.
still can't see it till after a while. And like what they're experiencing isn't the fear of loss. What they're experiencing is grief. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah, well, gosh, this has been such a lesson in my life in so many different chapters. In fact, I feel like, oh, it's funny. I feel like part of my life purpose, or like my soul's journey's purpose, is to really experience and understand grief and then teach from that place of personal experience and lessen the suffering of others, or help other people navigate that. A bunch of things popped off in my mind when you said that. So I'm going to kind of like
Go for it.
spider web off here. But the first thing was, you mentioned something that I experience constantly, which is the fear of leaving good for great. Sometimes, like, we're in situations in our lives where maybe we're not super happy, or we're not getting exactly the results that we want, but we're comfy. It's good enough. And that is harder to leave, to take a risk for something better, than it is to leave a super shitty situation. Or we're in a shitty situation that we're gaslighting ourselves and trying to pretend that it's good enough. I mean, man, I've done that in relationships so many times, because this is not my words, by the way. Somebody else said it, but we are more comfortable choosing a familiar hell than we are giving ourselves the opportunity to experience an unfamiliar heaven, right? And I think about like those stories about former military guys, like prisoners of war that were captive in horrific situations for months or years on end, where they slept on a cold cell floor for years or months or whatever. And then they get removed from that situation, but they're so traumatized, they will sleep on the floor next to a Tempur-Pedic mattress with linen sheets and 1,000 thread Egyptian cotton, because they are so now attuned to the dysfunction. Pain becomes familiar and it somehow becomes cozy. And again, here's another analogy. I know I'm like the analogy queen, but there's the analogy of like, if you throw a frog into a boiling pot of water, it's just going to jump out, right? Right away. It's like, screw that. But if you put a frog into room temperature water that it's used to, and then you slowly crank the heat up, it'll sit in there until it's cooked to death. And that's what happens to us, I think. Like, the only permanent thing about life is impermanence, but we don't want to believe it. Like, it's human nature almost to just fight and kick against that in every possible way, because we are afraid. And it's not the change that we're afraid of, it's the perceived consequences and the inevitable painful transition that will occur. Here's an example. You live in a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. It's too small. You hate it. Traffic sucks. You're excited for the prospect of moving into your 5-acre lot with a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath house, right? But in order to do that, you have to go through the inconvenience and the struggle of the possibility of getting your heart set on a house and then that one not going through, or somebody else getting it, or the fact that you just have to move. Moving is painful. You have to pack up all your shit and you have to go through the process of like the physical labor of moving it and getting it set up, and all of those transitions and the time and the energy and the possible disappointment in the process of house hunting and all of that. So it's just so funny. Like, look around us. Everything in nature proves to us that change is not only inevitable, but it's natural. Look at the seasons, right? Like, spring comes and then summer happens and it's hot, and then change happens for the fall, and then the trees lose their leaves, and then it's winter again. It's like everything dies, right? Nothing lives forever. Like, it's all around us, and yet we have this false hope that somehow we can avoid being a part of that, and we can't.
No, that was so good. No, you hit on so many good points there. And especially like the changing of the seasons. And it's like, we're bitching about summer being so hot, and it's like, I can't wait till winter gets here. But then when winter gets here, I'm bitching. Yeah, I can't wait for summer. You know what I mean? I think it's just, that false sense of, I think it's going to be better. The grass is greener, over here. And it's kind of like it's that old analogy. It isn't, it's greener if you water it, types of, things like that. But it's like, I think the older and the more mature that I get, I realize I guess it's a part of, working on myself so much. It's like, I'm starting to realize like what triggers me, what doesn't trigger me, red flags that go off, those that I want to surround myself around today, who I feed off of and get good energy from, those that like suck my energy, who I can only take for about 3 minutes. because life is too short. Like I've been in a blink of an eye, like I turned 48 this year. Like I can't believe that. Like what happened to the past 20 years, right? Of
Yeah.
like killing myself, grinding away, and I envy you because I don't work. I work all the time. Like I work every single day. And I just had a conversation with Vic where it's like, I'm kind of getting to a point in my life and in my career where it's like, what are the top 3 things? And I know this sounds so stupid, especially if you know me and you know our company, but like I'm just now coming to the conclusion where it's like I need to decide like what are the 3 things, if there's 3 things that only I can do in the company that nobody else can do, right? And those are the 3 things I'm going to stick to, right?
Yeah.
I still find myself in the weeds, and I know I kind of changed topics here, but it all kind of like threads together on how we feel, how we perceive things, what's the paradigm I'm going to have on this today. And having that paradigm shift, like, okay, like, you know what, like, I don't need to do this. Like, there's really smart people around me that can do this. And isn't that why I even hired them in the beginning with? It's like, why am I still getting involved with these things? And I just don't like how that makes me feel anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of in that season right now where it's like, it's not about like my New Year's resolution. And this is no shit, wasn't about like stacking more shit on top of shit. Right. It was actually about subtracting things.
Yeah.
With addition, sometimes, that, what is this thing? I just I just recently heard something. I think I wrote it down. Let me look here real quick. It says sometimes addition by subtraction is necessary.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Like I need to remove some things so I could add better quality things to my life. It's kind of like the season that I'm in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, okay, so we all have like limits, right? And there's things and habits that used to serve us at one point, like you being, we'll call you a control freak. I identify with that as well. But like, just to say that the reason I'm saying that is because you're expressing like, I'm doing more than I want to be doing at this point, despite the fact that I have other people that I could delegate. And by the way, delegation is so hard for people who are like type A, high producing, top performer type people. I mean, I struggle with that horribly. I'm a one-woman show besides a very, very part-time assistant. And so to speak on that, I would say there's diminishing returns at some point where, think about exercise. Let's go back to exercise. If you exercise every day, most days, that's good for you. But if you do it for too many hours every single day with no break, it actually is detrimental. You can't recover. Your muscles don't have time. You need, like, rest is part of the program. And so it's about learning, like, what are my limits now? And those are always changing, right? Like you just said, like, hey, I'm 48 now. Like, I'm not 28. Where did this time go? And I think it's constantly about just kind of reassessing where we're at in life and what is serving us now, and what do I need? What do I want? And then how do I organize my life around that? Right. And some of that is just kind of trusting. Like, I can tell you, I got rid of a former assistant who I thought did way more for my business than he actually did. Long story short, I overpaid him. I mean, it was just like a ridiculous situation, and I wanted to release this person for a really long time, like several years actually. And I'd made plans to do so. And then I would always chicken out because I had this weird like scarcity mindset, or in my head, like, I don't know how I'm ever going to run my business if I don't, and then when it finally did end, I realized, like, first of all, somebody else entered the picture instantly without any effort on my part. It was like the universe said, finally, you made room. Here's a person that could help. I like quadrupled my business or 5x'd it in like 1 or 2 months with this new person. And it was just, I had this prompting that I constantly put off and put off and put off. And when I finally gave in, the universe was like, here you go. This is what I've been trying to give you, to like give you a better result. Right. And then I found somebody else that helps me so much more than my previous employee. And I'm like, man, it's like, you have to it's all about feeling. How do you feel right now? What is not working for you? What are you afraid of? Okay. Is that really a valid fear? Or is that a fear that's big enough that is going to prevent us from taking a different action? And then it's kind of like leap and the net will appear. I'm huge on just manifestation, law of attraction, and divine guidance, and all of those things. That's like my whole world nowadays. But I think that we are provided for if we trust that if we take the inspired change that we're feeling prompted to do, we will be guided to whatever it is that we need, whether that's a person or a solution or whatever. Right.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I don't know how many times, at least twice over my career, I've experienced the same feeling that you're describing right now with a coworker.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, going kind of back to where it was like I just was more comfortable with the shitty situation that I was in with them, but
Yes.
knew that they probably had to go, but it was so uncomfortable of packing the whole house up and moving, right? Even though I know it's the best thing for me to do,
Yeah.
but I just couldn't. So a situation came up, and this guy was my right hand man, and became my best friend. And lesson learned there too. Sometimes that doesn't mix well. Business and being best friends and stuff like that. There's a lot of both of us were probably taking advantage of each other at some point in time over the course of our relationship. But finally, he just left. Right, like he left, and I think one of the reasons why I think I held on to him so long was because I was like, man, then I would have to start doing this again, or just that fear of like, I don't know how we're going to run the business without
Exactly.
this person. Right. Well, it was like we exponentially, the quality, first and foremost, the quality of the company just was like, it just improved almost immediately.
Yep.
Right. And the growth, the exponential growth that we experienced was just phenomenal. Like I couldn't even fathom like how great things had become. Not that there wasn't a couple hiccups and some learning curves along the way, but it was great. But I've actually tested this theory, and anytime we're kind of put in this situation or position, I always say to the team now, it's only happened, I think, twice since then, but I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it has, I mark my words, I swear on everything that I love dearly, that it's like addition by subtraction is necessary sometimes.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I am a firm believer. I've witnessed, I've tested it. I've tested it like, okay, let's see what you got, universe. Like, what do you know what I mean? Like what good could possibly come out of this? Right? Like, try me, like, and lo and behold, it's like the greatest thing that really, it may not have been what I thought should have happened,
Right.
but it's exactly what was supposed to happen. And it was for the better for me, for my mental health, physical health, the company health, the everything. It was just, it's amazing how that works.
Yeah. Absolutely. So something that you just said reminds me of a mantra that I always practice, which is there's always more to be revealed. And, something that I'm really learning now is to try to see things from a divine perspective. We have to remember that like our tiny little slice that we can see, that we think we have control over, we only see the immediate opportunities in front of us, which is extremely limited, right? We have to remember that we live in an infinite universe that is intelligent, that is connected through the fabric of life, right? Like everything is connected and working together. It's constantly cooperating to create and sustain balance and harmony in some way. So if you're feeling disharmony in something, that means something's out of whack, but you need to follow that and then allow the infinite resources and creativity of the universe that has access to 8 billion people, different combinations of things, timing, like it has access to the stuff that we only have like this tiny little awareness of, right? And that's going to bring new people. I didn't know who Kevin in California was. 21-year-old Kevin who just randomly showed up and helped me quadruple my business in 2 months. Like if it was left up to me, like, what are my options? I thought I had none. Or that I was just going to have to do everything or whatever. And so, yeah, it's like, there's actually a really great book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And it was a really inspiring book. He tells this story about basically just following intuition and allowing things, surrendering to whatever the universe was guiding him to do, whether it seemed impossible or unlikely or not what he would have chosen for himself or not how he pictured that something was going to go. And when he did that, all of these things lined up, not without challenges, mind you, but all these things lined up to bring him incredible wealth, success, connections. And it was just very, very fascinating. It's like, man, we have to remember that there is an intelligence that is running every single thing that exists, including us, that is so much more powerful and far-reaching and intelligent than we are. that it can create opportunities and situations and results in our life that we could never think about. Like I always point this out, like the earth right now is spinning and I don't have to do jack shit about that. I don't need to like wake up and be like, oh no, who's going to spin? Like if I don't spin the earth, then what's going to happen? Grass grows on its own. I eat food and my body just knows what to do with it. What? My heart's beating all on its own. If I cut my finger, it heals on its own. Like when we do that and we go, oh, like there's actually a lot, everything is going on. And I think that I'm in control of all of this. I have to remember that if I'm just like, hey, the same power and intelligence that is waking me up every day and sustaining me and healing me and growing things and spinning the earth and rising the sun and all of that, that's the same thing I'm part of. Like I'm not separate from that. I'm not like this separate thing that's out here in that and has to figure out how to survive. I am just as much a part of it. Did you design your body, Ty? Did you bring yourself into existence on this planet, right? Like we didn't do any of that. We're just, and we're an offspring of it, right? And so can't we trust that a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
but
sure.
Again, it could be scary to do, but that's what I lean on. I'm like, there is a force way smarter than me, way more intelligent, way more resourced, way more creative, infinite, wise, and ancient that's running this show. Can't I just let my foot off the gas a little bit and let Jesus take the wheel? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so great. And that was probably where I'm at right now in my life, where it's like, I can let go. And I've traveled for a year on and off, and the world kept rotating, my fingernails kept growing, the grass continued to keep getting green and things like that. And getting back to what you're saying. Yeah, I'm a control freak. I can't help it. I'm the only one that can do this and do it as well as I can. But I think over, the years of being, beating myself up, and I'm a glutton for punishment. I think we just get to a point where when the pain's great enough, we kind of get off our dead ass and do something about it. And I'm at that next level, that next growth level to see, what does the universe have in store for me? But I have to endure the pain because it's never going to be a good idea till I think it's a good idea. I don't care how many times you tell me, Becca, that, you need to let go of this, but like, it's not a good idea until I think it's a good idea. And when the pain's great enough, I'll finally do something about it. And it's kind of like, here we are at this next growth spurt. And we've been preparing ourselves, for next year. We started at the beginning of the third quarter of like preparing ourselves, being proactive. Cobb Backer is actually being proactive. I'm not reacting when January 1st comes rolling around, right? We're being proactive and stuff. And because of that, it's through the pain and the things, the trials, the tribulations, the tried and the true and all that good stuff that we've gone through mentally, physically, spiritually, personally, has brought me to this place to where I am and who I am, and what has made me who I am today. You know what I mean? But because of not doing things right the first time and screwing up multiple times, and I probably have more failures than I do successes in my life, and I know that for a fact. But I guess when I was sitting there listening to you talk about all this stuff, and I was like, I wonder at what point in time did she start to discover these things? You know what I mean? Was there a book when you were a 12-year-old child? You're like, okay, like there's a universe out there and I just play a small part in it. And if I can kind of just stay out of the way and things are just going to happen, but I got to play my role in this. Like when did all of this, metaphoric, the unison, the collaborating, like when did that all start to connect for you?
In severe moments of grief, like the lowest points of my life, where if I did not seek out those concepts and ideas, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I began having what I would call a spiritual awakening when I was about 25, and it was kind of spontaneous. I was starting to get what I call downloads, like ideas and messages and things. This is going to make me sound like a crazy person, but I was starting to get ideas about things that I didn't really totally understand. And it was prompting me to seek like deeper meaning and depth in my life. And at the time I was married, unhappily, both of us were unhappily married, I would say. And I was terrified to make a change. I was young and I didn't have I don't have a normal upbringing. Like my parents, my mother, it's not even fair to just say that she has borderline personality disorder. Like she's sociopathic, and what my therapist would call malignant narcissist with borderline personality disorder. So what that essentially means is she is a terrible person. She's very cruel. She is narcissistic in degrees that you could not possibly imagine. And she took pleasure in really harming my brother and I, like mostly in emotional ways, but psychological, emotional. So, and then my dad, I'm pretty sure, is like a clinical narcissist. I'm not using pop psychology here. This is like the serious issues. Okay.
Mhm.
So they took us away from my whole family in Canada. I'm actually from Newfoundland, Canada, which is like 3.5 time zones away, and cut us off from our entire family for my entire life. And they were just terrible. Like I grew up in a house that had no love. It had a lot of severe, weird, creative punishments all the time. And like, I just thought I was a bad person. Like I don't deserve love. I must be bad. And so fast forward, I got married very, very young. I think subconsciously, it was the first person I dated. I had never even been with anybody else before. And he was 8 years older than me. And I think that was the first person that I kind of felt like somebody's going to take care of me, you know? And we got married. We met when I was 19. I got married 2 years later when I was 21. And then throughout the years, we were not compatible in really important ways. And I had no emotional intelligence to navigate a relationship. Like, bless that man for some of the stuff he put up with for me, because I just didn't know how to navigate anything. But I was unhappy and I became increasingly more and more unhappy. And then I started kind of waking up spiritually and having these thoughts and feelings and promptings and leadings into directions that I didn't fully understand, but felt very, very strongly about. And long story short, I had finally separated myself from my parents, went no contact with my parents, which they didn't even give a shit. It's been 11 years now. They've never contacted me. And so I was terrified to split up from my marriage because, first of all, to me, that was a no-no. I had Christian guilt, right? I was like, well, you don't get divorced. I chose this path and I didn't want to be a worse person. I didn't want to hurt somebody by leaving a marriage. And it just seemed like that wasn't even an option. Well, continue the years. You can't live in misery like that, right? And again, this is not about him. It was about me. He was a great person. We were not a good married couple, right? And so finally, I split up from my marriage. And when that happened, I was not prepared for everything that was going to hit me like a freight train. I didn't have a family. My parents didn't show up for me during my divorce, never heard from them. I had nobody. And my business, suddenly, it was like, now I'm running a business by myself. I had nobody. I had moved into a new state where I didn't know anybody. So all of that was just hitting me so hard. And this goes on. I mean, I dated a really wonderful person who is still like the love of my life, quite frankly. But he was really loving me and like showing up for me. And it was so unfamiliar to me. I self-sabotaged it. I had never felt that before in my life. So I was at the lowest possible point of my life going through that experience, like a divorce and then pushing away the person that I was madly in love with and couldn't make sense of anything. This is a very long story, but I'm answering your question, I promise. Okay. So all of that compounded to a point where I could not get through my days. Like there was a whole year. I might get emotional here. I don't have a hanky. This is going to be a problem. There was a whole year where I was barely surviving. I couldn't get out of bed. I was so depressed. Life had no meaning. I genuinely was angry at God. I was like, why? I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be born and have to go through this shit. And I didn't pick these parents and I did not ask for these like set of circumstances, like why am I forced to go through this? And in that, there were two options: kill yourself or find meaning in this. And by the grace of God, I chose every day to try to find meaning in it. And that led me to a lot of books. That led me to a lot of deep conversations with people. That led me to finally, and it took a really long time. It took years actually to get to this point, but going through therapy and then really like uncovering and addressing stuff that I had buried decades before, you know? And so I just had to find a way to get through life. And now it's turned into, this is not only a way to get through life, to understand like how the universe is working and divine perspective and all those things. That is life, you know? And so now I find great joy in it. Even when I am facing painful challenges and chapters, it's like, okay, well, this is somehow part of the fabric of life. And I might not understand it right now, but I do trust that it is eventually going to lead to some place that I need to be. Right. And so that's a long story long. It could be way longer, but it was grief. It was pain. It was absolute and utter despair and directionlessness. It was falling out. It was divorce. It was breakups. It was all the types of grief and pain that led me to my journey with spirit, with God, with trying to find meaning in the universe and actually beginning to find it.
Wow. No, it's so good. That was so good. And it's a perfect example of overcoming adversity. And just know that you're not alone. All those feelings, maybe not all of your experiences aren't the same as other people's, but I think the feelings, a lot of times the emotions and the feelings and how we treat other people because of our upbringings and things like that. And we don't know how to react to certain people actually being nice to us, right? Like we need to go through all that stuff. You know, it's like once we have that moment where we can it's almost like hovering over yourself. And it's like, you know what? I just treated this person like shit for so many years. Like you can almost see how you impacted or affected other people. And I got a little story where, I actually saw myself in somebody one time. It was almost like I was able to like remove myself from my body and like oversee like the whole conversation, how everything went down and how they treated me. And he was a friend of mine, and he was behaving very poorly and threw a box of sugar at Jana, and of course I chased after him, and he got away, and the cops were called and all this stuff, and somehow I turned out to be the asshole throughout this whole thing. But that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is and it wasn't because of how he threw the box, and nothing to do with women. My point was the things, his tongue, how sharp his tongue was, and the things that he had said. I saw myself in him right away, and that's, you know, we got, you know, we were able to make up, and I don't know where the guy is anymore, but long story short is that I think it takes situations to happen, at least for me, right? Where like I have these moments that happen throughout the course of my life where it's like I may have treated people poorly, but somehow justified it in my twisted mind that it was okay. You know, if you grew up the way that I grew up, and I used that as an excuse for a long time. You know, I drank the way that I drank. If you grew up the way that I grew up, you would drink the way that I drank, right? Like, and I rode that freaking thing till the brakes busted off that for the longest time. But until I started to get sober, I started to realize how badly I was treating people and how selfish I was and self-centered. And half of these things that I experienced were due to decisions that I made. I chose to get in these relationships. I'm the one that chose to drink that way. Like it was nobody else's fault but my own. But it's like, I think at some point in time, I think, you know, maturity and puberty hit me later than most people, I guess. You know what I mean? Where it was like, I started to like actually wake up and see and identify, like, I don't like this person. The reason why I didn't like these people was because they acted the same way that I did. They had the same character traits that I did.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really put my finger on like what everybody else liked them, but like I didn't like them. But it was because I saw myself in them, and it's taken me a long time through the experiences. Some self-inflicted experiences, some were outside, you know, environmental stuff that I had no control over. But I needed, getting back to like our initial conversation, was like I needed all of these things. I needed to behave the way that I did. I needed these situations to happen to me, whether it was my parents, the things they said to me, the positions they put me in, you know, or the things that I put myself in, to be the person that I am today, to have that empathy, to care, to actually have a relationship with another person, right? Like I didn't know how to have a relationship, friendship, whether it was a friendship or a girlfriend. Like I didn't even know how to do those things.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I didn't know how to reciprocate love to somebody else. It was a take. I thought you were here to serve me. You
Yeah.
kind of, you may not been that, but that's kind of who I was many moons ago. And that can veer its ugly head sometimes too, but I'm quicker to like check myself, right?
Yeah.
Like I know, because it just doesn't feel right. Like I get that feeling today, and identifying these feelings a lot quicker, that I just put myself in a position where it's like, oh shit, I owe an amends. And that's big too. For me, for healing, it's still kind of like that healing process of the shit that I put myself through and the shit that other people had put me through. It's kind of like I'm still kind of healing from that. But I know today that I'm the only one that can make any situation worse.
Yeah.
Like any situation, like I can blow things so far out of proportion, kind of like I almost did with the Chuck situation where he threw the box of sugar. I almost made that situation worse than it was, even though he threw the box of sugar and he's the one that started it. But I was going to kick his ass and the cops were called.
Yeah.
So if I would have handled that situation much differently, it wouldn't have spiraled out of control as much as it did, and the cops wouldn't have been called. But because of all of that whole entire situation and me being able to like step back for a minute and see where I actually played a part in this, like I saw myself in him. That's probably why I didn't like Chuck to begin with, right? And then my behavior just trumped what he did.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that made any sense. I was kind of
No.
just trying to relive a little thing that happened to me that I kind of related a little bit with what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely it does. And it's funny because when you said something, you said you like something that you had not liked about yourself that you've worked on is like the sharpness of tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a huge, like chronically throughout the last, throughout my adulthood and even as a teenager and stuff like that too. I understand now that I lived in such a powerless situation as a child constantly that I did not get a chance to express any of my feelings, my anger, my sadness. And if I deeply gaslighted or invalidated or whatever, and that created two monsters inside of me. One, very repressed anger that came out at the wrong people sometimes, or came out disproportionately later in life to safer people who really didn't deserve that much vitriol, but maybe they did something wrong. Maybe I was hurt by something, but I had 25 plus years of really bad rage that I had not addressed, that it doesn't matter who's invalidating me or crossing me now. All of that's really meant for like my mom and my dad is coming out on somebody who did something wrong or said something wrong, or they, whatever, or I perceive that they have done something wrong. And I would just be like a dragon breathing fire, and I would use my words. And because that is really the only thing that I learned that I could do sort of as a child. And we carry these things with us until we address them, right? Like I didn't know how to do any better. And my problem was choosing people and situations usually that kind of made me feel a familiar way to how I felt as a child. Not all the time necessarily. I'm not saying like, oh, everybody else was bad. That's never, ever what I believe. We all play a part in like co-creating these dynamics and relationships or working situations or whatever. But I never learned how to address conflicts in a healthy way. I never learned how to communicate. And in my mind, nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about my feelings. And so I just have to try to show up and overgive so much until I feel like people will definitely take care of me if I'm showing up this way. And then when they don't, all of that vitriol comes out, right? Like I just freak out. And it's a lot of the times misdirected, or it would be disproportionate, like I said, to whatever the situation may be. But I mean, I see myself so much in what you're saying too. Like I also beat the shit out of myself over mistakes. Like I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? Why I can't, sometimes I don't even really remember like doing the thing or saying the thing that I said. It's like something else takes over. That's like the self-protection mechanism, and you lash out or dissociate. Right. And you just like, it takes a long time. And it's funny because you mentioned like, you said I'm 48 and I feel like I am just figuring some of these things out. I feel that exact same way. I just turned 36. I've been beating myself up about errors that I made years ago. Like, man, why did I treat this person that way? Or I wish I had not responded or reacted that way. Like, holy shit. But at the time, I literally did not have access to anything else. Like, we are products of our environment, right? And that stuff is like an operating system that we didn't even really install. We inherited an operating system, and it takes a great deal of self-awareness and intentionality and accountability to be like, okay, I don't like this operating system. I need to uninstall it and install something new. And we don't come with an instruction manual, right? So like we have to give ourselves grace and compassion. And that's tough to do. It really is, but it's worth it. It's worth the work. But a lot of us do leave a trail of damage behind us on that journey. And it sucks. Like if you're not a sociopath, you're going to beat yourself up about that. You're going to think about it a lot. And it just comes to a point where it's like, okay, when are you done hurting yourself over this? And what can you do now? You know, like understanding that everybody's on their own personal healing journey and it's just not easy. And some of us have a really fucked up start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, no doubt, man. I feel like I could talk to you for 2 more hours about this stuff, you know, taking it out on the wrong people over small shit. Because I think for me, I stuffed so much stuff for so many years
Yep.
that it just comes out at the wrong times on the wrong people over really stupid small shit.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate to that. You know, learning how to deal with stuff, conflict and stuff like that. I don't think anybody in their right mind enjoys conflict. Like I really don't. Like I don't like to argue with people. You know what I mean? But I can't be a doormat either. So there's a happy medium there where it's like, nah, you know, I have to agree to disagree. You know, and that's okay to say that. You know, but a lot of people think you're being a smart ass, but it's kind of like I'm telling you, I'm accepting what you just said. I still like you. Like, you know what I mean? But there's so much good stuff. God, we got to get you back on the show. We're already over an hour. Damn it. I feel like I can keep going, but I don't want to hold you hostage much longer.
You can hold me hostage for a little bit if you want, but I'm also happy to come back on. We can anytime down.
Yeah. Either way, it doesn't matter. So both. Okay, a little bit of both. I'll hold you hostage for a little bit longer, and we'll definitely have to get you back on here because I feel like we've elaborated on top of our first conversation that we had. I think it was last year or 2 years ago at Roofing Process, because that conversation was definitely, we didn't have the time that we had right now.
Yeah.
But self-mastery, trying to figure ourselves out. We're not perfect. We got to stop beating ourselves up. I agree with all of that stuff. And it's a shame that most of the world hasn't identified these things. They're set in their ways. And that's the thing, keeping an open mind, remaining teachable, I think has been a pretty good asset of mine of like, you know, what got me here isn't going to get me there. And I'm not who I want to be, but I'm definitely not who I used to be.
Yeah.
You know, and every day I'm continuously trying to work on just being a better human being, a better father, uncle. You know, I'm a grandfather. Can you believe I got 3 grandchildren? Thank God.
Yeah.
You know that I'm only 48 in this instance. I'm only 48, right?
Right.
With 3 grandkids and people around me that love me, that care for me, that understand me. I think for the most part, like and that's the thing. Don't try to understand me. Just love me. In most cases, right? And I've been able to do that, right? Like I've been able to surround myself around people that level me up. You know, that carry me when I need carried. I don't always have to be the one carrying everybody. And I think that was probably one of the biggest struggles for me because I'm a man. I got to carry everybody. I'm going to drag you along and I'm going to push up to the top and I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. I'll figure it out. You know, for me, being vulnerable with somebody to let them know like where I'm at, I'm not feeling well. I'm in a bad mental state of mind. And I go through that, right? I can't help it. Sometimes there's like a situational depression or anxiety or insecurity, right? Like insecurity. And I think a lot of that comes from my past childhood experiences and things like that. If you really found out who I was, you might not like me, kind of, you know, that I feel all the time, not all the time, not as much as I used to, but like, I still have those ebbs and flows where it's like, you know, I'm at a low today, but I need to know that there's got to be somebody in my corner that I can talk to that's not going to run their mouth, that's going to give me sound advice or just listen to me. And I
Yeah.
think that's really helped me over the years, is finding that individual, right? Because sometimes I can't always take this shit home. Like my family don't, need to know the woes of like what happened at work or things like that. But there are things that I got to share with my loved ones at home. But I've been fortunate enough to surround myself around people here at work, that believe in the same things that I believe in, know what the mission is, and that I feel like I can really be vulnerable around. And I think some people are just so afraid or don't know that there are people out there that will actually listen to them and actually care about your mental state and your physical well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, learning to lean on people. That's the other thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm starting to do that now, but it sucks when, like, okay, I'll go back to like my upbringing. The people who were supposed to care about me the most by
Exactly.
default did
Mhm.
not give a flying fuck
Yeah.
about me and actually enjoyed watching me be in pain, which is a real mind fuck, right?
Mhm.
So I grew up having to I became hyper independent, first of all. And I even shut a lot of stuff down. I was telling this to my therapist not too long ago. I was like, I remember my friends joking that I was like a robot when I was a teenager. And I thought that was funny at the time. Like, haha, nothing really can shake me. But I wasn't letting anything in. I didn't feel really, really good. And I also didn't feel really, really bad. I just kind of didn't feel anything because after 2 decades of feeling terrible, eventually it's a survival mechanism. In fact, I remember a very distinct moment. I don't remember what had happened. I was being punished very severely for something, and I was a child, and I was in my bed in my room, and I had been crying locked in my room for hours at this point, and nobody came, no, nothing. And I just remember feeling so exhausted from crying and realizing nobody was going to come for me that I literally just had the thought. It was like a different voice came in, and it was like, you just need to not feel anything anymore. Like the only way that you're going to get through this is like this life until you're old enough is to just stop crying and just endure until the end. Like you don't have any control here. And I did that, but to a degree to where that persisted for so long, and I was defensive. I was, I just became kind of like, I used aggressive humor a lot. Everything was just like, keep everybody out, and be charming so that you're likable enough you get through. But it was like, I didn't realize now, but now I see that part of me was just absolutely fucking terrified of human beings. Like,
Mhm.
who are you going to trust? Nobody likes you, or I've always kind of felt like an imposter or like on the outside, like I don't have a family. Where do I belong? Like, who do I belong with? Where do I belong? It's like this crazy, deep, deep, deep seated thing. I feel like I'm getting off course here, but you're saying,
Not at all.
so yeah, just trying to figure out like how to be in the world and where you belong and
Yeah,
reaching
where do
out.
I fit in?
That's what we were talking about. I could not support myself in my emotions because I was so disconnected from how I felt that I certainly couldn't imagine that somebody else was going to be able to be there for me. And it just, you feel like you're going to be a burden, or that you are needy, or something in you is just not letting you reach out for support. And finally, now I can say, like, for example, I'll be vulnerable with you right now, Ty. I have been so lonely in my life, like the last year or so. I live in a beautiful place, but I'm very isolated. Like I don't have community up here. The nature of my business is that I work by myself on the internet. All of my relatives live in Canada, 3,000 miles away. And I only really met them in my late 20s when for the first time. So it's like, I don't have those built-in kind of connections and communities. And so like Saturday and Sunday, I literally cried all day. Like I was in a very, very low spot, and I spent the entire afternoon pretty much on Saturday on the phone. I finally would call people and I'm like, hey, I'm not doing good. Like I'm very, very sad. And it was really, really cool just to see like people just sit and listen and like FaceTime you. Hey, you're like, they don't need to fix your problems. They're just like, hey, I understand how you're feeling. Like, and just kind of let me air stuff out. And then that in and of itself is healing. And it's funny because maybe you can relate to this or maybe not. I don't want to assume. I always felt like maybe not, because you did say something earlier that might be the opposite of what I did as a younger person, but I always felt like I needed to be there for everybody else. Like I wanted to, but I had never let anybody else in on my problems or my depression or my suicidal ideation or my grief or any of that. It was just like I constantly found purpose in being there for other people and going the extra 25 miles for them, doing stuff that I had no business even doing, that some people look at and be like, wow, that's really insanely generous or selfless. But I think I was self-abandoning in a lot of those situations, for people that probably didn't always deserve it either. And so it was really hard for me to like let other people do things for me. I still have a problem with that. Men, I have to tell myself in my head, let this man open the door for you. He wants to open the door, like little stuff like that. So even, the big stuff when you're like, hey, I am having a scary low day right now. I need support. That seemed like a really big stretch,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
happy to report I'm doing that now.
Well, good. I think for me, I can relate to what you were just saying, going way over and beyond and being super generous. I think for me, it was because I just wanted people to like me, and I thought I needed to do things for them to get them to like me, right? To be
Exactly.
popular. And trying to find that spot in the world, like where do I fit in? Like I just feel like I don't fit in, and so I would do really stupid stuff like giving, caring, and open up my heart. And I think when you were going through that where you weren't really feeling anything, you didn't feel good and you didn't feel anything, it was easier to not let anybody in so you didn't have to feel hurt or, let down. Like so many people had let us down over the years. So it was kind of like, I'm not even going to let anybody in.
Yeah.
At least for me, you know what I mean? Because I remember experiencing that during like even after like a breakup where I would just like shut down and like I was like not heartless in a mean way, but like emotionless. Like nothing can affect me. I'm not going to let anybody in. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to put my head down and I'm just going to do my thing, right? And so I've been through that, and I've also struggled, especially in school. Like I just did really dumb things looking back, just to try to get people to like me, that were obnoxiously over the top generous and I can still put myself in situations like that, and then they come to expect it, right? Let's talk about then, and when they start to expect it, then I get pissed off. Right? I was the one that actually created that. Like that's something I had to identify too. Like I need to be super cautious of like, because I'm very caring and I'm very giving. So I'll over give to the point where then like people just like expect things, right? And then I'll get frustrated or I'll get upset or I'll get resentful at these people or individuals that I've been super generous to, and all of a sudden I'm not generous anymore, and then they don't like me.
Now you're a narcissist.
Yeah.
You're like, excuse me.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like I have to I've learned that about myself. But I also got to be careful because I want to let people in. You know what I mean? And it's like I've created, and my perception of things too is not always the greatest. And again, that's where like being able to talk to other people, like, hey man, am I being crazy right now? Or is this kind of fucked up? Like this situation that this person is putting us in, right? I don't know, that's screwed up. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't thinking, that I'm being taken advantage of when I'm not being taken advantage of, because I can be very easily taken advantage of in a minute and allow it to happen. But I have to know that I put myself in that situation. I did this to me. Like yes, they did it, but I allowed them to do that to me. And again, I think this is a part of like kind of for me is like growing up and maturing a little bit of like being cautious on like who I'm putting myself around, like who am I allowing into my world today? Because this is what's cool about this. We actually get to pick and choose who's in our lives today.
Yeah.
Right. And there for a minute, I don't think I understood that.
This is so funny. I had this exact revelation very recently where I was like, because I guess this is probably a product of, think about it. When you're a child, you're born into a family. You don't pick your family, you're in it.
Right.
And then you make friends by proximity who lived on your street, who did you go to school with? Who did you go to college with? And then it's who are you working with if you do a normal job, right? And you're not really actually choosing. And you find that subconsciously it's just I am in this situation and I need to find a way to fit into it. Instead of, and then we start to break away from that and it's like I can choose the type of people that I want to have in my life, and like also you can choose who you don't want to have in your life anymore.
Exactly.
And it's funny, this sounds, I don't even know if the profundity is going to be communicated here, but I realized not very long ago I was like, I get to live my life. Like my life, it doesn't matter if there were people in my life that are no longer in my life, or that I used to do this thing and now I don't do it, or I was going to do this career and now I don't do that, or I lived here and now I live somewhere else. All of those things, like for some reason felt like this scary departure from like being included or something. And now it's like your life will go on. Like whether people were not a good fit for you and they exited, or you fucked up and they exited, both things are going to be prevalent, right? Like your life is still your life, and there's still an infinite universe where you're going to have new opportunities and like get to design the life that you want. But man, it's hard. It's tough.
Either way. Hard. Yeah. And again, getting back to like, we have to put ourselves through certain situations to realize and discover, I don't like that. I don't like how it made me feel. I choose not to go there anymore. And knowing that I have that decision to make, like, I don't have to go there. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. And not to sound contradictory on like, put yourself in uncomfortable positions, like get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like I 100% believe in that. But like when it comes to certain people and places, like I don't feel comfortable going to a bar every night, and I don't feel comfortable in a bar anymore. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. It's not conducive to my mental health.
Right.
I have way better things to do with my time than going to a bar every night, even though I don't drink. But I've tried that. I thought I could still hang out with the old people that I drank with and things like that. I have just come to realize that that's just not conducive to my mental state of mind, and nor are those the people I choose to hang around with anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because there's much more healthier things to do and healthier people that believe in the things that I believe in and are trying to accomplish the things that I'm trying to accomplish in, and they feel and have experienced the same trauma or good experiences that I have. And those are the people I choose to be around today.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a weird, again, it's like all about the sense of belonging and like worries of exile, or like, who am I now? Or am I going to be shunned or whatever? And, you know, like
Doesn't
2
matter.
years, I never had like a drinking problem at all. I never kept alcohol in the house. But I still, my social activities, generally speaking, were going out and drinking because that's what everybody did, right?
Yeah.
And drugs. And I had some fun back then during that. But I also realized that like I make very bad mistakes sometimes when I'm drinking, cheating, doing reckless, dangerous things, like stuff that I would never do in a sober state of mind. Right. And I realized like 2 years ago, I was like, drinking makes me a bad version of myself. I don't like who I am when I'm drinking. Not that I'm doing it that much, but when I do, I don't like what I do. I don't like how I think. Like I literally don't care. There's no inhibitions in my brain. And there's actually a lot of science behind this with what they call complex PTSD, which is what I would fall into very much so just from like my very traumatic upbringing. But your brain physically develops differently. Like your amygdala is shaped differently. Your hippocampus is shaped differently. And that has a lot to do with your impulse control. And so like add that to drinking, I would just do stuff. I didn't care. There were no consequences in my mind. And then afterward I'd be like, oh my God, why would I do that? Right. And it's like, so I just decided I kind of gave it up. Not that it was like a huge sacrifice for me, but I also am not hanging out with the same people that I was my party friends. Right. Like stuff happened there. We're not together. It's like, that's all we did. And now it's funny because I kind of gave it up, and then I wouldn't say when I started drinking again, but if I would go out and have a drink or two and I'd start even just get a little bit tipsy, I'm like, I don't actually like how this feels. I'm just slower and dumber. And why can I not be here in this situation with poison in my body or not? What's the difference? Like, why can't I go to this dinner and just be sober? Why can't I have this conversation sober? Why can't I go to this concert sober? What's the difference, right? And it just brings up a lot of questions. So now we're veering off into sobriety, but
Yeah.
I'll still have like a glass of wine once a month at a social dinner or something, but that's like the extent of it. And even then I might not finish it because I'm like, I feel my brain getting dumb. I don't like this. You know?
Well, good for you. I mean, because I know for me, I just didn't know when to stop. I made very poor decisions, and I'll still go out to dinner where there's alcohol served. I'll still go to bars. I'll still go to dinners and things like that. Like I don't hide from it
Yeah.
whatsoever. And when I came to that revelation, like you had mentioned, like I can still be in those atmospheres and not put alcohol in my body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think for the longest time too, especially when I first got sober, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought if I'm going there, I need to drink. That's why I'm here. There's other reasons why people are here, whether it's a networking event or a roofing conference, after VIP party or things like that. Like I actually enjoy those things now. I actually get to remember them, and I don't feel guilty about the things I said or did when I was there the night before because I don't drink anymore. So it's like I remember, I have great conversations, and that I'll be quite honest with you. That's where I've met some really great people, was those after hour parties, after roofing, the conference is over and the VIP parties or the networking events. We're actually hosting one tomorrow here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there may or may not be alcohol here, but you know what? I don't really give a shit. That's just not my thing anymore. And that's not because I used to think that's how I could only cope with life.
Yeah.
Because I liked how it made me not feel. It made, I liked how it gave me that liquid courage where I felt like, I was actually I felt free. I was able to open up. I was actually able to have a conversation with a human being. Well, I'm having one with you today. I didn't need alcohol in my body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or any type of other mind altering substances. And I think once I got over that hurdle and realized that I actually have a more productive life today, I feel smarter because I'm not hungover and feeling burnout or whatever the case might be with the substances that I use. Sometimes like I just didn't know when to stop. And I thought I was working harder, and it made me more creative, and all these stupid things that I used to feed my head with, that like why I needed to do the things that I did were actually the opposite of the productive part that I thought it was giving me. It wasn't. It actually was holding me back. So anyhow, I'm going to let you go. We've been on here for an hour and 21 minutes. We're definitely going to get you back on here. Perhaps we'll run into each other somewhere too along the line, either at RoofCon, Win the Storm. I know we're going to go to SRC, Win the Storm, and RoofCon here at the end of October. So if you're at any of them, do not hesitate to come over to our booth because we're going to have to jam out again like we did today.
Absolutely. I'll be at RoofCon. I'm also going to be at Western Roofing Conference, and then I'm going to be at whichever one is Marco Island. What's that? RPC, I think. Roofing
think
Process
so.
Conference.
Yep,
So
yep.
I'll be around. I've really enjoyed our conversation. And I like that we don't talk about roofing. Like, let's talk about the human experience.
Yeah, no doubt. Right. I mean, that roofing is just a byproduct of us.
Yeah. It's what we do. It's not who we are.
Exactly. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everybody for tuning in and hanging out with us. We still got quite a few viewers and listeners out there. So thank you guys for taking time out on your Wednesday afternoon. If you haven't liked, loved, or subscribed, please do that. And if you didn't catch us in the beginning of this, please check us out on the replay, because this was probably on my top 3 favorite most episodes. And I'm not lying. This was so good. So thank you. I feel like I can accomplish anything now after our conversation. I just kind of feel freer for whatever reason right now, but
I love that.
yeah. So thank you so much for the therapeutic conversation that we had today. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably so much about your story too. It's so connecting and honestly healing to be like, oh, other people have felt this way. Other people have also made mistakes. Like, I'm not the only one that's, you know what I mean? So it's really nice to hear that.
It is. I think more of us need to be more vulnerable and stop the shit. Cut the shit.
Cut the shit.
Yeah. Cut the shit.
Perfect.
Right. So anyhow, you take care of yourself. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I look forward to chatting with you again.
You too. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
See you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.